Hello, and welcome to myfinanceteacher.org. In this video, I want to go through the platinum market report for 2020. This report was actually published in February this year, if I'm not mistaken. So let's go through the details. Looks like platinum supply and demand dropped in 2020 due to a number of reasons, due to closures of mines and automotive plants closing down as well. And all of that is, of course, because of the global health issues. These health issues also disrupted collection of platinum-containing scrap, decreased purchases of new cars and jewelry. So world supply and demand for platinum each decreased by around 20%. So the drops in demand and supply are somewhat similar, and the market stayed in a relatively modest deficit. Auto catalyst demand decreased by 22%. That's mainly due to lower diesel car production in Europe. Industrial demand was relatively strong, especially in the petrochemical and glass sectors. China built new petrochemical and glass plants, which of course supported the demand for platinum for a while. Additionally, some industrial companies actually took the opportunity to buy platinum at lower prices in advance. So those are advanced purchases for some of their future projects in 2021 this year and also next year in 2022. Looking at the numbers and figures for demand and supply for platinum, we see that supply disruptions due to the pandemic were quite substantial. As I mentioned, the global supply reduced by around 20%. The largest drops were in South Africa, around a 27% decrease in supply coming from South Africa. And that's, of course, mostly due to the national lockdowns in the first half of last year. Later on in the second half of last year, production in South Africa restarted, but still the recovery is kind of slow because of all of these extra constraints due to infection control measures. Supply from Russia and other countries didn't suffer as much as it did in South Africa. And recycling, as I mentioned, or the secondary supply, dropped significantly due to the pandemic as well. So, for example, platinum recoveries from auto catalysts and from jewelry scrap decreased by around 21%. Investment demand for the last couple of years has been quite strong. Part of the investment demand is due to the safe haven buying, as platinum is, of course, one of the precious metals. Additionally, investors' sentiment is increasing, I think due to expected increasing demand from automakers, demand for auto catalysts, and also positive investor sentiment from future demand for platinum from fuel cells. But that's, of course, not something happening tomorrow. And this chart in front of you shows the changes in platinum holdings by ETFs. And outside of the pandemic scare, that's around March, April, May last year, ETF holdings have been rising together with improving investor sentiments. As mentioned, platinum demand by automakers dropped quite a lot. It dropped by actually 22%, down to only 2.2 million ounces, which is actually the lowest demand, lowest level since the global financial crisis. And yes, from the middle of last year, demand by automakers began to recover gradually, and it's mostly only in the heavy vehicle sector in India, in China, where automakers' demand for platinum has remained relatively strong. In the longer term, platinum-containing diesel particulate filters, DPFs, are gradually being displaced by filters that don't contain much of platinum group metals, but that's perhaps a very, very long-term perspective. So far, all diesel vehicles in Europe continue to require at least one filter that contains some metals from the platinum group. And many automakers actually over the next mid to long term plan to adopt trimetallic or platinum rhodium catalysts for some of the gasoline cars. So it's not only in diesel cars that these metals are required. Moving on to industrial demand, a major industrial demand of platinum comes from petrochemical, petroleum refining in the glass industries. Back in 2020, this industrial demand was relatively strong. In China, for example, 2020 was actually the final year for their 13th five-year plan, which expects the country to be much more self-sufficient in the petrochemical industry. So according to this plan, purchasing and construction of new factories was actually boosted quite a lot over the last couple of years, which of course has contributed a lot to the demand for platinum over these last few years. The Chinese fiberglass companies were still expanding in 2020, which also contributed to some demand for platinum. And additionally, some firms actually made advanced purchases of platinum for their future projects in 2021 and also in 2022. So that, of course, supported platinum prices last year, but it also might imply reduced demand over the next 1 or 2 years. And outside of China, in the glass sector, demand for platinum was actually down. So generally, the demand for platinum decreased by around 14% in the glass sector. But even then, if you compare current consumption with some earlier historical data, the current consumption by the glass sector, even after a 14% drop last year, is still relatively strong. And of course, most importantly, for me and for you as an investor, the question is, what does it all mean going forward? So let me share my views on that, and whether you agree or disagree, you are more than welcome to share your opinion in the comments below. Firstly, starting with the supply, the primary supply of platinum as well as recycling, I think are going to recover over the next 1 or 2 years, of course, as the world comes out from the pandemic. And while this supply recovery might be a negative factor for platinum prices, it is a positive factor for the stock prices of those platinum producers. So keep that in mind for the upcoming recovery of the precious metals prices. Investor demand in platinum is likely to improve, perhaps to be lifted by the upcoming rally in precious metals prices, as I mentioned, and by expectations of stronger demand from automakers. And automakers' demand is likely to recover over the next, say, 1 or 2 years. And additionally, in the longer term, demand for platinum might actually increase even further, perhaps at the cost of demand for other metals in the platinum group, as automakers are switching towards cheaper platinum in their filters. Industrial demand might perhaps be soft over the next maybe 1 or 2 years due to the advanced purchases in 2020 by the petroleum refining sector for some of their projects in 2021 and 2022. But perhaps this softness might be outweighed by global recovery from this pandemic. And in the further longer term, industrial demand is expected to strengthen substantially. Jewelry demand perhaps will strengthen as well as the global economy recovers, as the stores are opening up, and as platinum is still cheaper than gold. And talking about gold, I think gold is very close to the short-term daily cycle low, so at least a short-term bounce is upcoming, so I'm still holding, and I am planning to sell into that upcoming bounce. Perhaps the cycle did actually finish yesterday, and if gold doesn't create a lower low, RSI might already show us a positive divergence, which is often an indicator of some sort of a bounce. So there's my view on platinum in the long term and gold in the very short term. And now, of course, it's your turn to let us know in the comments below, what do you think of potential future performance of platinum versus gold price? While you're there, remember to hit that like button and share this video with your friends. Have a pleasant Wednesday and good luck in your trades.